Hello, I'm Michael Rowan. I'm here to introduce you to the MAS Medical Staffing Maestra mobile application for your travel nursing needs. We're going to walk through the installation and use of the product. We're doing this right now on an iPhone, but it also is available on Android. The differences really are in the installation process, where on the iPhone we would use the App Store versus Android, we would use the Play Store. But once you get the product installed, the product looks and behaves exactly the same on both platforms, so there won't be any differences once we start using it. The only thing I'll point out really is when you go to the App Store, what we really want to do is go to search for MAS medical staffing. You'll see that medical staffing shows up. We can click on that, and you'll see Maestra Mobile right there. MES Maestra Mobile. We already have it installed on this phone for this demonstration, but normally there would be a Get button there. You click the Get, do all your magic, just do an install. I'm sure you people have installed multiple apps on your phone already, and you're old hat at that. But since we already have it, I'm going to go to it. Once it's installed, you'll see there's an icon in one of your screens or your app tray that has Maestra and the little our logo for the mobile app. If you click on that, we'll come in. Now, here we're talking about how you log in. There's a few things. When you get invited to the application, there will be an email that gets sent to you, and that email will have a link if you want to set a password for MAS. There's a couple of ways to do this. You can set a password associated with your email address with MAS. It'll just be your MAS Medical Staffing Maestra password, and that's fine. What we find easier sometimes is using Google, Facebook, or Apple to log in, because you won't have to remember yet another password. The key here is that the email address that you have associated with MAS needs to be the email address associated with either Google, Facebook, or Apple ID. So as long as that's the case, you can use one of those buttons to actually do the login and not have to worry about a password and not have to keep yet another password. If your email address you're using for MAS is not one of the ones associated with that, you can either set your password with that email by clicking on the link and giving it and creating a password for yourself, and then using underneath the sign in app, you'll see or sign in with your email and password. If you click email and password, it'll take you to this screen, and you'll be able to type in your email and password and sign in. But we're going to use Google because it's easier. And you'll see what happens here is we reroute you to Google, and Google wants you to authenticate. I'm going to use my travel testing account. So I click on that, and because I've already logged in my Google account on my phone, Google's managing and saying, oh, I know that you're that person. So you're fine. Same thing works the same pretty much way with Apple and Facebook. The one trick with the Apple ID, or not trick, is Apple can do one of two things. They'll ask you when you're logging in whether or not you want to share your email address with the login with Maestra. You need to select that. If you don't select that and you decide to hide that email address, Apple will give you will basically tell us about an arbitrary email address it assigns for this purpose. Maestra won't quite work right. You'll get to a screen saying you need to register. What you just need to do is then call support or call your recruiter and tell them that you have an Apple ID login that is not yet registered. We'll dig out the actual email address that Apple is using for you in this situation, and we'll update your account records. So you can do it either way. The easiest thing is just to share, because we already have your email address if it's associated with the account. So we get to the screen, and the first thing we want to do is set up a couple of permissions. Notification permissions, that allows Maestra to push notifications to you about upcoming shifts, reminders, jobs you might like, things like that. It's just easier and gives you more control over the notifications than if we're using SMS or texting or email. But you have a choice of how you want to manage your stuff. Here I'm just going to say yes, please. And the other one is location permissions. So location permissions lets the application use the GPS to know where you are when you're looking for certain things, or you doing things that need GPS. Usually that's looking for a job or looking for quick shifts if you're working some per diem shifts. The other side of it is when you clock in and clock out, we record your GPS. And that way, if the facility has any challenges or issues or tries to claim that that you weren't working, we actually have a recording of the fact that you were in the building. And so we can go to bat and say, no, the nurse was actually standing in your lobby when they clocked in. This is ridiculous. You know, I don't know what's going on, but it's clearly not the case that she wasn't working. So it just gives us a chance to sort of a little bit of protection there. So we're just going to say allow just while using the app. There's a license agreement you can look at if you want to read a bunch of standard license agreement stuff. We're going to skip that, but you can get to that here or on another screen. I'll show you anytime you want. So if you want to look at it, you can look at it. We're going to proceed. Here we get to the main screen. So the main screen, this is our home screen. If you look at the bottom of the app along the icon tray, you'll see 5 icons. The first one is a little house. The house is your home screen. The home screen always shows you here who you are. Hopefully you know that. But it also gives you the weekly summary of what you've worked so far this week and what's upcoming. So the app works in a couple of different ways. With travel, the shifts that you're working are really set and controlled by the facility you're working at. So it's between you and the facility. So you can do one of two things. You can clock in arbitrarily, meaning that you don't have to tell Maestra about your schedule. You can don't have to relay what the facility assigned you to work. You can just show up for work and clock in and clock out. If you do that, what the to go fields here will be 0 all the time because it will say we don't know about your schedule. And that's fine, and you can use it that way, and that's probably a reasonable way to use it starting out while you're getting used to the application. You can also, if the facility has a set schedule for you or tells you what your work week is the next week, you can put those into Maestra here, and I'll show you how, so that the app can just remind you about your shifts. So if you put your shifts in ahead of time, the app can do reminders saying, hey, you have a shift in an hour, or you can come back here and look at your schedule and see exactly when you work if you don't remember. So if they do something like put it on a board in a bulletin board or, just verbally tell you, it just gives you an easy way to sort of quickly record what you have to work and when you have to work it. So, the other things tell you basically just from a shift and hours perspective where you are, in the week. Your score is basically your reputation score, and that's mostly based on, it's a little more complex with per diem, where we don't have much control over, we have full control over when you're supposed to work. With travel, obviously, it's between you and the travel facility. So depending on whether they have it, your score can go up and down. But if you don't show up for shifts or the facility, sort of gives you a bad rating because something happened, that can go down. But for the most part, people, if they work the shifts and they go to work, their reputation goes up. And what happens there is when a facility is looking at you for a new job, that score basically ranks you and gives them a feeling like, that you are a reliable employee that shows up for work and does all the good stuff. So that's your reputation score, and we can go through that. But the next thing we're going to do is we're going to jump over to your profile screen. And so while the home button is on the far left, on the far right is a little person icon in a circle. If we click on that, this comes over and gives you information about yourself. And you can sort of use this to, make sure your phone number and email addresses are right and all that kind of good stuff. This is just a test account, so I don't have that stuff really set. But the really key thing here, I think that's more useful in the short term for you, is the gear button at the top near the account line. If you click on that gear button, you'll see this is where you can actually report a support issue. So if you have a problem when you're clocking in and you're clocking out, you can come to the screen, you can click on report a problem, you can say, and I'm just making up a silly thing to make sure that that the technicians that see this don't think that they actually have to call me. So, and if you report this, you're good. So the key is if you have a problem, like let's say you have a problem clocking in, for some reason the application is not letting you clock in or there's some issue, you can come here and say that while you're at this site, just go in and work, and the technicians will work through the problem and figure out what's going on and what's wrong before you clock out so that we have things sorted out and squared away. If it won't let you clock in, for instance, you could say, won't let me clock in, got here at 7 o'clock, and we will basically not just work on the problem of why you couldn't clock in, but we'll actually clock you in for 7 o'clock, and it'll already be done for you when you sort of go to clock out. So that's some of what you can do. So we can hit submit. If we wanted to submit it, we're just going to cancel it here, so I don't have to do anything. You can also call tech support, and this will route you to a phone. It's not as reliable just because people are at their desk, sometimes at their desk. So it and who it's routing to. So sometimes you'll get to a voicemail, and we will get to voicemail. But in this age of computers, the fastest way to get responses is really reporting a problem using the report a problem button. So, but you can try the call tech support as well. But it's really, but our primary sort of response times are really around the where you send a thing in, because when you send something in, it automatically creates a ticket for you. And there's a ticket in the support system, and there's lots of people watching the support system, and so you have a much better chance of getting a response faster. So then we go back now. The next one I'm going to go to is the button on the bottom next to the home screen. There's a plus button. You'll see if I click on the plus button, this is jobs. So this lets you look for new travel jobs, upcoming travel jobs, and see them. So you can scroll through these travel jobs for a given job. You can click on it. You can look at the details about it, how long it is, the hours, the setting, details about the job, about MAS, etc. You can also apply now. The apply now button actually is going to get much smarter. Right now, it routes you to a screen that lets you put your information in. In the very near future, this will all be filled out in automatic, and you won't have to do any of this stuff. You'll just be able to do an apply very quickly, and put a note on it if you want. But right now, if you put your stuff in here, it will route to your recruiter, and your recruiter will then be able to follow up and figure out for you. Find out for you that you're, start the process of getting you in the job queue for that job, getting the interview set up, things like that. What I did there. I said I just click on the X at the top to sort of say dismiss this job. But where that is, you'll see that there's a little funnel icon with 3 bars, each getting smaller next to the travel at the very top right corner. If I click on that, it lets me filter the jobs. So this lets you filter the jobs by a whole bunch of stuff. So I'm going to filter it saying I just want RN jobs. And I'm going to filter it saying I really want to work in Massachusetts this time for some reason, or in New Hampshire. And I apply these changes. And now I'm just looking at RN jobs in New Hampshire and Mass. And so you can use that filtering to sort of wander around and see, like, I want to work in Nashville next time. I want to work in Chicago, whatever. You can sort of use it to sort of investigate where there's jobs, how much they're paying, what they're doing, etc. So that's jobs. And that gives you the ability to sort of keep your finger on the pulse about where you want to work next as you're doing something. Now we'll get to the main show, which is really the other two. You'll see there's 2 more icons at the bottom. There's a clock icon and there's a schedule icon. If you click on the schedule icon, it gives you your calendar. So if we look at our calendar, we can see, hey, I've worked 4 shifts here. Already this week. You'll see they're orange. It's because we haven't signed them yet, but they're there. So I can click on an orange shift, and I can look at the details about that shift. It gives you what you worked, when you worked, all that good stuff, but they're not signed. So if the facility has told you about your schedule for the next week, or for the whole, maybe it's a set schedule for the whole travel gig, you can also have these scheduled in here so you can see them, and they'll be colored differently, and I'll show you what that looks like as we move forward. But right now I don't have any scheduled, so I can show it to you, so I can show you how to actually add them in a bit. But it's not required. You can just clock in and clock out to the job as you go, and that's fine too. If we click over on the icon next to to the um, the calendar, which is the clock, that takes you to your current shift or the next upcoming shift. If you have put in your scheduled shifts, it would, and there's one upcoming, it would show you what the upcoming shift and make it easy to clock in. You just press a clock in button. You don't have any upcoming shifts because you haven't told this. I haven't told the app about it, but I can clock into a placement right here. And so I can just click on and this is what we call arbitrary clock in, which is all that's required. You can just say, you show up for work and you say, clock in. I want to clock in, and it'll jump to the screen and say, hey, we're clocking in. And what happens is we basically uh, jump to and start recording a clock in, clock out, and we're moving forward. So um, right now it's I'm not sure why this says 9:41 on the phone because it's actually 7:30 here. And so it's this facility is a 12. I'm doing 12-hour shifts at this facility, so it just assumed you were doing a 7:30 to 7:30 shift, and it gives you the time that you got to go. And so this is all. It's all recording. It gives you an easy way to come back and say, how long do I have? You can also do things on the app, which we're going to do while we're doing this. But what I wanted to show you was the fact that you can clock in, and then if I waited 12 hours, I could clock out. The other situation you might get into is where you go to work, especially since this is new, you go to work and you work the shift and you get back to your hotel or your home and you realize, I forgot to clock in and clock out. This is another way to do it. You can come here, you can arbitrary clock in and then immediately clock out. And it says, "Oh, are you sure you're basically clocking out early?" It's like, yeah, whatever. Clock out. And then we get to the screen, and what we can do is we can actually edit the recorded time. So we can say, yeah, I know it says 7:29, 7:30. Obviously, that's not when I worked. I actually worked the 1 to 6 shift or something. So what we can do is we can click on this edit button. It's like, if you see, there's a little green box with a pencil in it. If you click on that button here, then you can see, you can start you can start changing it. So I'm not going to change. You can click on the date if you want to. So if you click on the day, September 2nd, it'll let you change that. I'm actually going to click on the time, and I'm going to change it to 1 a.m. And then I'm going to click on, and so now it's set to 1 a.m. for my clock in, and you'll see underneath that, you'll see finished 7:30 a.m. I'm going to change that, and I'm going to change that. I clocked out at 6:30 and then I drove home, whatever. So this is also the place where you can actually edit your break time. So the break time should be set to automatically give you the breaks that are active at your facility. Usually that's 30 minutes or 60 minutes, or depending on the place. But you can change that if you need to. I'm not going to. And then what I do is I say save. So you want to save these changes? Yes. Now I'm good, and here now we've done with a shift, and I can go ahead and get a signature for a shift. Generally with travel, I think you normally get signatures in batch. You want to get the whole week's worth of signatures at once. So I'm just going to say save for later. So now we're back to the screen where we clocked in and clocked out. You'll see below the clock into placement, there's a thing that says view placement details. So if I click on the placement details, here it gives you the sort of overall sort of details about the placement. This placement's not real, so which is why some of the fields aren't set, like pay and those kinds of things. Yours will be, but we have obviously there's no Bob Ross School for the Blind, since he's a super awesome painter and he wouldn't be able to paint quite as awesomely if he was actually blind. But what you can do is this is the info. You'll see next to info there's shifts. So if you click on the shifts tab, it will give you a summary of all the shifts that you've worked for this placement. I just started this placement, and what it shows me is I've worked 5 shifts this week, which is Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. It was a busy week. And you'll see they're all colored orange, and they're all colored orange because they haven't been signed. And here's where we can actually say, okay, my week's over and I want to get my signatures. There's 2 different sort of mechanisms. If you're at a facility where certain nurses have to sign for certain shifts, meaning you have a head nurse that signs for Monday and Tuesday and another one that signs Sunday, Wednesday, Thursday. You can get them separately, or if it's a if it's the case with a facility where you just have to get a signature from one person, the head, coordinator or whoever it is, you can get all the signatures at once. So if you click on them, you can select which ones you want to get a signature for. As soon as you click on one, you'll see it goes to the bottom and it gives you a sign button. So now, if I click on sign, it's going to get a signature for just that one shift. But I could actually highlight these and say, I want, I have one person who has to sign Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday. I can click on sign, and it'll sign those. Or I can click them all. Another way to do it, if you're doing them all, is you can click on the ellipsis and you can see sign all unsigned shifts. So I'm going to go back. So now I'm going to sign. If you click on sign, it goes to the screen where it says, please now hand the phone to your manager, whoever's going to do the signatures. What they'll do is they'll press proceed. They get a review of all the shifts that they're signing for, including what breaks you worked, which days you worked them, when exactly it happened, how many hours you were there. And so they have that and they can say, I'm going to confirm that. And now they'll put their name, say, this will take them to this screen. The screen will let them do a signature so we can see. You can click on the review button if you want to, if the manager wants to review the shifts to see what's happening. But really all they really have to do is sign however they sign. Click on finish. And it takes them back here. You can see now that all the shifts are green because they've been signed. And you're ready to go. The other thing you can do, obviously, so let's click on the X to get out of here. Go back to the calendar by clicking on the calendar icon at the bottom. And now you can see all the shifts have been signed, so they're in green. And so what you can do is you can click on them and you can say, hey, I want to request instant pay. So you can request it here one at a time as you go. So if that's the other thing is if you want to get instant paid on each shift as they happen, you need to get that shift signed. The shift has to be signed in order to be able to request instant pay. But you can also come over here, go to placement details, click on shifts, click on the little ellipsis dot 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 button, and say request instant pay for all, and say yes. And now they'll all be requested for instant pay. The icon's changed. If we go back, click on X, click on the calendar, and if you click on any one of these, you'll see instant pay has been requested. When the instant pay has been paid, you'll see that it will update here and go from requested to paid, so you'll know when it actually hit your account. So that's everything as far as being able to clock in and clock out. And hopefully it's everything you need. As we move forward, we're going to be adding a lot of features to this to sort of make it more robust for the travel facilities, for the travel nurses. We have been using this for 2.5 years with the per diem side and building it out. And so this is our first rev that adds in some of the travel features, and we'll be moving forward. If you have any sort of features that you would like, you can basically click on that little profile button, click on the gearbox, and use the support mechanism to basically describe a feature you'd like to see. We have a lot of features on the roadmap that we're working on and working through, but if you as the user are requesting certain features, that will allow us to sort of figure out what's the most important to you as the user and bubble those up to the top. So feel free to submit any requests, complaints, issues, things you think are a little clunky with the app or ways you'd like to work better. You can use this to do that as well. So hopefully this is everything. Thank you. And before we go, I'll actually show you how to put in schedule stuff. So if you're at the facility and the facility has a schedule for you, they've already sort of designated, said you're going to work next week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 3 to 11. You can come to placement details. and you'll see this little blue button down at the bottom right-hand corner. If you click on that blue button, you get this calendar. And so what we can do is we can go to next week, and we're going to work 3 to 11, 3 to 11, 3 to 11, 3 to 11. Now remember, this isn't creating those shifts for you with the facility. This is you telling Maestra the facility wants you to work then. So there's no magic here that's creating those shifts. What you're doing is you're basically, it's useful for when you go into the work and the head nurse says, here's the schedule for next week. We need you here Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 3 to 11. You can put it here, and then Maestra can remind you that these shifts are upcoming. Once you have them set the way you want them, you click on the little checkbox at the very top corner next to the ellipsis. You see it next to plan schedule. Click on that, and we say save, and now we have it. So if I get out of this placement info by hitting the X and go back to my calendar by hitting the calendar, now if we go down to next week, you can see the shifts are scheduled. If for some reason you schedule shifts and they're the wrong hours or the wrong whatever, don't worry about it. You can basically cancel the shift. If you click on it, you can say cancel shift, and it'll disappear. Also, if maybe you work longer or it's for 7.5 hours, but it's actually a 12-hour shift, you can clock into it and clock out of it, and it's the clock in, clock out that actually matters. You're not gonna only get paid for 7 hours. It's just a reminder. So as long as the start times are right, you're fine. So you don't have to worry about that piece of it, but it should align the hours with the facility you're working at. But again, it's purely for convenience to remind you about shifts that the facility has scheduled you for moving forward. So, okay, that is it. Hopefully you guys have a great time with this, and we look forward to supporting you moving forward and making your experience with MAS medical staffing as awesome as possible. Thanks for listening.